first order of business is to have a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay. And has everybody read them?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, you want, I didn't know, Katie made a motion to move it, but I don't think somebody actually made a motion at the end that, for the motion that we approved. You know what I'm saying?
Which one?
It's
Maybe
number
two,
2, yeah. Katie made a motion to move it forward, which we did, and the motion carried. And then Katie summarized the trees and then didn't vote at the end. So I just wasn't sure who made the motion.
I can go back and look at VCT if nobody made a motion.
I don't think it's,
I may have to go back and revisit it.
no, I don't think so. I think it's more like house cleaning sort of.
So
I can
the
go
word
back.
says Evans makes a motion to sign,
No,
or
Not a
What's
motion
missing?
on the trees.
for the trees, yeah.
Well, yeah, what's
What's
missing?
missing?
now?
no.
Where did you make the motion?
Here it says Evans makes a motion to sign the letter of collaboration,
Yeah,
and then on the back side, we've got Morrow makes a motion to get these trees.
I know, but what's this one? Are these the both the
that's the
same?
letter
Yeah.
of collaboration probably.
Katie
Yeah.
abstained from both of the votes.
But nobody made a motion for this one.
You did.
Where?
Not that way.
Okay.
Evans.
All right, so I don't have to go look.
Okay,
I think we're good.
and then just the spelling. On behalf. I don't know anything else. Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, additions and deletions, we don't have any, Connie.
I don't think so.
Members of the public, welcome. You okay, Laura? You look tired.
I am tired.
Yeah. Correspondence, we have Cory's email regarding Tom Boardman's visit of August 25th. Is there any action that needs to happen with that?
In the email to me in Alenka, it was just asked to put it on the agenda, so maybe just to announce it, I think.
I would imagine he doesn't need to have a use request to stand on the steps, but, or does he? But he said there would be like refreshments to follow or something, so at that time he would need to have.
And he
use
might not
request.
understand the process, so probably one of us
Well,
should.
just email him about
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
That makes sense, yeah.
Well, and you wouldn't want some, Alenka to take a request that was at the same date and time,
Right.
et cetera.
Right.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, warrants.
Make a motion to pay the warrants.
Do I hear a second?
Starting with number 1, payroll, the amount of $13,389.70. Number 2, payroll tax, the amount of $6,159.48. Number 3, general fund, in the amount of $16,381.38. Number 4, highway fund, in the amount of $9,278.94. Number 6, fire reserve, in the amount of $355,000 for a total of $400,209.50.
Second.
Okay, discussion? I have an issue with the Windham Regional Planning bill. It's for $9,270 and the line item is $10,000 in the town report, and we've already spent $3,330, and which brings it up to $13,600, obviously over the $10,000, and I'm not sure if there's another bill coming for the second quarter. So my thought is to reduce the warrant by that much and have the planning commission come and talk to us and bring their contract with them next meeting.
Does that fall under general fund
Yes.
on the lines? How are we being billed? Like hourly? I mean,
It's a copy there, it looks like it may be line items.
Yes. So that's like hourly.
and when we wrote the budget for this year, did we write it to reflect a certain number? Of what they
They
thought
had,
this was gonna
they
cost?
had 10,000 for this ensuing year, and for next year, July 1st, they have 8,000.
Okay.
And then the dues are totally separate, so,
And before going into the next fiscal year, they've already spent 13, is what we're looking at.
they spent 13 now, and I don't know if there's, because this bill very specifically is for the first quarter.
Yeah.
So there could be one coming for the second quarter that's before our close of the year. That could bring us up over, another $10,000, who knows? We don't know. Did I hit the wrong figure?
12,600.
Okay. So, thoughts of the board?
Probably need an amendment to the motion and then to reduce it from the whatever the question,
If the board
Question.
agrees, or you think we need
or then you put the amendment up and then you vote on it.
Okay, so I make an amendment that we reduce the, that we reduce the, which warrant was that under?
Number 3.
Number 3, general fund by $9,270 for the Windham Regional Planning Town Plan work.
Second.
Okay, then discussion?
So this is a discussion about the amendment.
No discussion, so. Then do we vote on it?
Yeah.
If there's no discussion, all those in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? So you've got 4 coming.
So now we're reducing the warrants by that amount, do we have to now vote on the warrants still?
Yes.
So we need to,
So we want to do the math on
yeah. Nick's gonna do that. Do you want this since,
So the total warrant now should be,
that? Could you give the general fund warrant too?
sure. Alright, the new general fund should now be $7,111.38. And the total for the warrant should be $390,939.50.
you got that, Con? Okay, so now, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4 is go. Okay, now we are on to our highway, Jeremy.
I don't really have much tonight, just, cruising in the summer here, finally got some good weather, just, we've been hauling gravel. Some of us have been taking some time off to use up our vacation. That's about it.
Okay, well, I was gonna discuss, or unless you want to discuss the random people dropping things in the, recycle.
Karen's gonna lock the gate tonight when she's done, so,
Okay.
I need to straighten up the gate
I
posts.
think the gate needs to be moved, and I think the gates need to be locked when you're not there, because people come in day and night, and I was working on the north side of the tent warehouse, Sunday, and it was a steady line of traffic coming in and dumping in the, recycles. Even with the big sign, only these hours, only, and do they live here? I don't know. Do we pay a lot for recycle? Yeah, we pay an awful lot. And one day that I was there poking around inside there were baby swimming pools and
Things that should be in there.
you know, hosing from like maple sugaring and stuff. So it's getting abused and, we have to figure it out. So
Is
Jeremy,
the kiddie pool non-recyclable?
Fine.
Not really.
I don't think so.
No, it's wrong. It's
It's not
wrong type of
recyclable.
plastic.
Is sugar and tubing non-recyclable?
No.
why don't you call
What's
it?
that?
None of it has any residue on it.
Even if it does, it's not recyclable.
Yeah.
It's still a class 7 plastic that we don't collect in the state. It's a hard plastic.
All you have to do is look on the
Class
side of the bins and they tell you exactly what can be recyclable.
I'll guarantee that if I go through the whole entire state, Laura, it'll tell me that it doesn't say anything about sugar and stuff.
If it's not on there, it means you can't recycle it.
Half the things aren't even on the thing of what they will accept, it just says single stream on it.
All right, well, in the interest of time, I'm only mentioning it because we're spending a lot of money on recycle, and I think we're supporting the region in recycle myself.
So what we've heard is that Karen's going to lock it tonight, and it sounds like there's an effort to lock it. You raised the issue of moving
The
the
gate,
gate.
so that like when they leave at 7 o'clock in the morning and come back at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there aren't people coming in all the time on days when it's, so, because if you're gonna straighten the gate, you might as well just move it.
And locking the doors on the recycling bins?
Some can, some
Oh,
can't.
okay.
And then it's a matter of making sure we take the locks on and off.
Yeah.
And the other part of this question is that I said, well, what about the camera? And he said it hasn't worked for years. And I remember the camera used to be hooked up to computers, and would it be a simple thing to get somebody to check the camera that's there, would it work if it was successfully hooked up to a computer? And then the bottom line is, what are we gonna do when we find something that is recycling outside the, you know?
Probably have the door sit with it and return it to them.
The other thought is put cascade fencing. You can rent or buy fencing to put up around that dump area part that's temporarily, so you can move it during the winter. And then you close it off during the week, and then you have a couple spots where it's entered to get into it when you're having that, and then it still leaves them able to get in, pull and circle around and do their yard work. People delivering, you got Sosmo delivering sand when they do and stuff like that, and they fuel oils and
Yeah, the only disadvantage to that would be when they come to pick up the roll-offs, they're inside a fence. So,
Well, the gate can be a hindrance too, like you said, when that fuel delivery shows up and nobody's around to let them in, and
yeah. Well, I'm not saying we're gonna decide it today, but I'm saying it's and our bills keep going up, and we're having more and more recycling, and part of our trash committee was to try to figure out who is doing the recycling. And when you have this open area, I mean, the other day I was like, well, why don't we get rid of the 3 days a week and just have everybody throw everything away whenever they want to? Because that's what it looked like on Sunday. So.
Second.
get rid of trash altogether.
No.
Yeah.
Get rid of
If
this.
That's
you
the
got rid of the
solution.
trash altogether, you'd find every pull off and every turnaround and dead end road would be full of crap, and that's why we always kept it.
Grafton's never
Guilford-
had trash. Newfane doesn't have trash.
Okay, do you wanna take a ride with me sometime and look at the trash areas? We can go right down the river road and we can go over the bank down there.
Okay.
And there's mountains of shit stuff over the bank down there.
Okay.
Well, in
If you
fact,
look at different
we
places-
raise the town meeting and the voters.
Yeah, they want this.
And, you know, when we've had problems with it before, the turnaround at Grafton gets dumped on. The Athens Townsend area gets dumped on. The top of Grafton Hill gets dumped on. You get out on this back roads, in every little spot that there's this area that you can get something over, there's something in it. That's why we've kept it. Well, we've had problems before in the past, is we close the gates up when the road crew's not there, and that mitigates a huge amount of it. And then people have to work to get it over there. and put it in there.
Mhm.
So they're not gonna bring, you know,
They'll get a-
a 24-foot
Well,
kid
that's why I
swimming
said
pool and
that's where
stuff
we're
and
gonna
then
start
recycle it.
there. We're gonna start with closing the gate. I just thought it was more handy if we're gonna fix the post for the gate to move it back so that a truck could fit there to stop to open the gate instead of being out in the road.
When we talk about closing the gate, we're talking about, after 2:30. So the gate will be open from 6 to 2:30 when the road crew is in and out?
I think that's
Yeah.
what Jeremy's thinking. I don't know if that's the way it will end up being forever.
But at least that's where we're starting?
That's what I,
Okay.
so, alright.
State Forest Road, there's another one. The first turn off, that gets dumped on.
Okay. Are we finished with that, folks? I'll go for a ride with you sometime.
Your vehicle or mine?
I don't care. We can take my vehicle. You probably make fun of the Subaru, but that's okay. Okay, the treasurer has told us that we have, let's see, total credit amount of, which one do we want to read here? There's so many. Not this one must be this and this particular. I don't know. Well, let's see, we have $1,464,559.85. And then in the swing account, we have $30,000. And then the town clerk for the first 2 weeks in May brought in $1,192.50. And then the chair has two things to report on. Where's the action items, Tom?
Before.
Before?
It's
Right before that. The chair has the Army Corps of Engineers meeting regarding the town master plan, Thursday the 12th, at Townshend Dam office at 3 o'clock. So that's just basically an announcement that
The board wants to.
everybody's welcome. If more than 3 of us go, we'll warn it. And anybody have a comment about that?
So far, Nick and Ally have expressed an interest in being at that meeting. Katie and Rob, if you let me know, that will determine whether or not we need to warn it.
I can go.
So you're interested in going to the
Yeah.
warrant?
It's the last day of school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then we have the action items. Ongoing is community events coordinator appointment. We'll get to appointments later.
So you have a copy of the action items. There is some that are still ongoing, some that were going to be worked on at the last meeting or this meeting, and then the new ones that came out of last meeting.
And with the energy one that I'm working on, I just want to say that I met with that man that did the Sovereign Solar, and there's parts that I don't quite understand that have to do with Green Mountain Power. And I've gotten the tax ID numbers from Elaine so that they'll actually speak to me, and I'll report to you next time. So, anybody else have anything they want to say about their action items or anybody's action items? Yes, not.
I had my hand up.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see it. You never quietly do it.
So I just wanted to make sure that, there is under writing the description of duties for the new appointments, nobody had taken that as an action item.
Taking what?
Responsibility for doing that, so there is an action item that will not go anywhere because nobody has, it was raised, but nobody has taken responsibility for
Which
it.
staff are you speaking about?
I'm talking about writing descriptions of duties for new appointments.
Okay.
And then in terms of the ones coming out last meeting for mine, I did send out what we have for descriptions to the select board, so that has been completed. I did talk to Elaine about the gravel crushing reserve. She wasn't quite sure about that, but there are line items, so she was going to talk to Darlene from Nemrick about it.
Why are we talking to Darlene Nimrick about our line items?
Good question.
Well, Nimrick doesn't hold anything with our line items.
I wonder how much it would cost Nemrick to do our bookkeeping.
Yeah, but it doesn't even, they don't have our line items. They're not the town of Townsend.
I know, but they talked to Elaine ad nauseum about them.
So I was instructed to ask Elaine if the gravel crushing reserve still existed. There is no reserve for gravel crushing. There was a line item. I don't think it's currently on there, but there was an line item that says holdover for gravel crushing or something like that. And I said, okay, well, is that where we would put it? She said we would, that you can encumber the funds, meaning the 60,000 from fiscal year 25 can be encumbered. I said, is that rolling over? Where are we putting the money? And that's what she wanted to check with Darlene about, which is what happened to that line item and encumbering the funds. So I come away from that conversation basically thinking that the 60,000 that we're not gonna use in gravel crushing for 2025 can be moved over to 2026. It's just, she's gotta find out the where of that.
I think we could also possibly look back, because I remember seeing it, I believe, on fiscal year 24 budget, and I don't remember about fiscal year 25 budget, so if we wanted to look back a couple budgets, we might see if it was on there and when it was last used, because if on the off chance it got dropped off this year inappropriately, that would be something we
I
need to
think
know as
that's
well.
what she's checking.
And you can encumber, you just say where it's going as a board, and it will have to just be filtered over. Encumbering means basically you're spending the money and you're putting it somewhere in keeping for a different budget.
Those bids are not due until June.
It doesn't mean you're creating a reserve fund, you're just trying to pool the money together.
Right.
Okay, where are we then? Any further action item discussion?
I did not do more work on the tree care RFP because I was
I'm
waiting.
supposed to call.
Well, I'm also waiting to see the UVM people that are coming for the tree planting
Yeah.
tomorrow. It was supposed to be today, but they had to move it a day, and I was gonna ask them their opinion
Okay.
on our tree care, so I'll do that tomorrow. And then otherwise, Glenn did send me an email that he added Connie and I maybe added me too, just saying that he was gonna follow up with me once he gets things going with the boiler for the firehouse, so. I'm sure
That was about the installation, right?
well, for
Or
the
is that
boiler,
different?
he has to order the boiler, so he said
Okay.
he was gonna follow up about that, and then he was looking into the water filter and I was looking into the insulation, so we were gonna meet, he and I, to talk about that, so we discussed that a little bit.
And then I hate to raise it, but we still have the town hall use policy
Yes.
issue that is out there. It's not in this,
We don't have it in tonight's agenda.
because it's on waiting for a draft and you were going,
Okay. You want it sent ahead of time for the board packet?
right, whatever you guys come up with.
Okay, and then we will move on to grant coordinator's monthly report.
Okay, so,
Which there is a handout.
this handout is just having to do with the different grants that we have outstanding. Actually, almost everything is outstanding, but not quite. what you're gonna see in fiscal year 25, that's all the money that we should be getting reimbursement wise. Doesn't mean that we're not gonna spend more than that on each individual project or something like that. Sometimes we spend the total award amount and then we spend our match over that. It just depends on how we budgeted for it. But basically, we are looking at, and these are grants that we already have signed all of the agreements for these fiscal year 25 highway grants. So all of this work is either happening right now or happening through this year. There's all the end dates on there. Things like road erosion inventory, that's just like an ongoing process that gets done, some by Windham Regional, some by Jeremy or the crew. So we're projected to get somewhere around $427,462 in reimbursement for these different highway projects. Some of them are just things that we would do anyway, and we get this money back depending on what the grants are. And then I have broken down the next section for town. The local economic recovery grant, we've obviously talked about that one a lot. That did get paid in fiscal year 25, so I added it here, but the discussion started in fiscal year 24. And there is some funds that have not been spent yet. And Connie and I had discussed, I think last week, we were gonna have a meeting pretty soon with Elaine just to go over the invoices, what exactly was spent, because I know that like we got a price for things like the iPad, but it may have cost a little bit more or a little bit less than the estimate on here, most likely a little bit less. So we're gonna go over the numbers with Elaine, find out exactly
That
what's.
before the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah,
so
I think we said we were gonna wait, she was working on something last week and we wanted to wait. So we're gonna have that conversation before the next meeting, before the next select board meeting. So I've checked off the things that should have been paid out of there so far, and then the last two haven't yet. In terms of the fountain on there, I had a meeting with Liza because she's the keeper of the common now, and brought her up to speed on things, and I think that we're going to get into some more discussions about how we have this $4,830 or so for the fountain, different things for it, and I've been getting some estimates on some stuff for it. So when all of those numbers come in, I'll bring it to the board and we can make a decision on what we want to do. The Vermont State Historic Preservation Grant, I'm excited to say I got the word today that my documents I submitted on Friday for the completion of the project are all set. We should be seeing that reimbursement of $6,281 anywhere in the next week or so, week and a half, she said. It was really important to me that we got it in before the mid-June. They closed down their books for the fiscal year in mid-June, so I wanted to get that reimbursement now, and it looks like we're going to. So that's going to be coming in, and that project went, I would say, almost seamlessly. It was great. Even with them showing up a couple weeks early and stuff, it still happened. And it was really great.
Do we get a drone of the roof after the repairs?
We didn't, they didn't do that, I didn't ask them.
Well, I just wondered how do we know that it was done correctly? We assume it was, but it's not something we can look at. So I just wondered, I knew they had a drone up there, and I didn't know if they did it like before and after or.
I mean, I didn't really think about, I wouldn't, it's hard to tell, like, if I'm looking at it, I'm not a slate roof person. So it, they sat there, they cut all the slate, like, they did the whole thing, they were here for.
And they're a reputable company.
Right, and they have insurance, so I'm leaning on the side of that they did a great job and they were really communicative and I was happy with their work.
You can inspect the south side of my house if you want.
Yeah, I did have to take some after.
Oh,
I had to take some after photos, which I just stood like across the street and took some pictures, and I took some action photos, and Connie sent me some while they did the work, and I submitted those to the state preservation people, and they were happy with it. So
okay.
There were some active leaks that kind of prompted this, weren't there?
Yes.
actually, we found out that the slate wasn't actually the problem. I don't think.
Oh, okay.
There were some that were shifted, some that were missing, some that were broken. Those all needed to happen. But we think the leaks was coming from, I might say this word wrong, the spalting. Does that make sense? Of the stucco on the chimney? Is that the right word for that? And I think it was coming from there. We did ask The Jansowitz people, if they did that, I don't think they do chimney work.
So
And
that's something we still need to
it
get.
didn't fall under the grant.
Yeah.
But I believe it was coming from that. We might wanna ask Rick Matchkey, cause he had a pretty good knowledge of that. When the guy went in there from Jansowitz to look up there, he said it looked dry and he didn't see any moist places or wet places at all. So there was that. But we can follow up on that and try to find out for sure. Okay, so then Vermont Community Tree Fund, that, like I said a couple minutes ago, that was rescheduled, but it's happening tomorrow after 12 o'clock. It's about $2,500 worth of trees and mulch and watering bags. Obviously, there's no money exchanged for that, so when you look at this projected total at the bottom, it does not include that $2,500 because no money was exchanged. They spent money on the trees, we chose the trees, they bring them to us, and we do it all together. So that's happening tomorrow sometime after noon. They're not sure exactly what time the trees are gonna get here, but they think around then. They're gonna leave White River Junction or so in the morning.
Is it the same trees that we?
So it's the same small white oak and the 2 black tuppelos, but then they couldn't get the cherries, so what they got was our second choice of crab apples.
Okay.
But they're non-fruiting. They're a variety that doesn't fruit, so that'll be a little easier with cleanup. The variety that they had available to us is the kind that you'll find on commons, outside of schools, outside of banks. They're like beautiful, they smell nice, but they don't make the big mess. So that'll be good.
Have we recontacted the elementary school with the new date?
So Liza contacted the elementary school. She told them 2 things, that they might expect to see Jeremy digging on the common the day before or the day of, and that there was gonna be this work happening and that there will be trees, and that could they please stay back. I guess that they had tried to see if we could change the date, but she stood strong with it had to be the 28th, and that's when it was happening. So I know they had some kind of drill or something they were gonna do this week. Maybe they had to change their plan, but
they know about
they
tomorrow.
know about it. They know the trees are gonna be there, and the trees are on, this side. So I'm thinking that I don't normally see the kids go past the fountain, but I'm not down there all the time, so I don't really know. I did not yet contact the supervisory union about, I was considering contacting them and seeing if they wanted to throw us some money towards our tree care
Reseeding.
and the reseeding and the aeration and stuff like that. I'm gonna ask them, see what they say, since they cause a lot of the traffic on the common. We'll see what they say. So I plan to make that phone call this week. And then this last one, number 4, MTAP is a set of grants that we were approached by Windham Regional last spring, and they told us there's all this money available, apply for everything, and we did, and we didn't get any of it. So I thought that was the end of it. After they had that conversation with us, the Planning Commission had continued to talk to them from the Preservation Trust of Vermont, and they were talking about this building. So they ended up informally having this $5,000 set aside just in case the town had gotten some architecture plans. At the time, it was just for access to upstairs, but as the Planning Commission had prioritized the needs of the building, they focused on the ADA compliant bathroom and the ramp out front, and we paid that $4,800 for those plans. MTAP still has this little $5,000 tucked away, and they emailed me and said, have you done any of this work, basically. And I talked to the Planning Commission and asked them if they could come to the Zoom with the woman. They weren't available. But I spoke to her from Preservation Trust, and she said, well, it sounds like the architecture plans that you guys already paid for fit our criteria, so please submit your architecture plan and your invoice and your canceled check. And I don't see why we can't reimburse you the $4,800 for that and close out your MTAP. She said it's possible that when her team looks at it, they could decide that they don't want that because they had initially said it was for upstairs access, but she was leaning towards that they're probably gonna give that to us, so I added it on this list. I did ask Elaine for those documents. I did not hear back from her. In the email, did you get that?
What documents?
I need the canceled check and the invoice. And then I need the architecture plans again. I was looking through my email, but I don't want to give the wrong thing. So if I could be sent those architecture plans and those 2 other documents all as one. I mean, I'd like to get it now. I believe that it's getting to the end of the fiscal year, and that's why they were reaching out to us to see if we were doing any of that. So I told her I was gonna try to get it to her ASAP so we could get that reimbursement.
The only question I have is, this money is not contingent on us going forward, because we haven't approved any
No,
forward
it's for what we've
motion.
already spent.
Okay,
And this money, the MTAP, is only for things like architecture plans, engineering studies, things like that. It is not for construction in any way.
okay.
So we're not bound to do anything further if the plan doesn't suit the board. But it is a nice way for us to get reimbursed for money that we already spent. So,
Great.
that would be good.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, fiscal year 26. Some of these highway grants haven't been awarded yet, and some of them have. So we're awarded. We've been approved for number 3. Number 2, we've sent a letter of intent, but we were on a list for how much. What do they call that? They give you what's called an initial offer, or they list that if you were to get it, this is how much you might get. So I estimated that based on what we got last time and what was on that list. It's not always a definite, but what we're finding with the highway stuff, that a lot of towns either don't have the resources to go after the grants or just don't do it. And we end up, even if we're further down the list than we expect to, we end up getting that money. So I added it in here. Again, number 3 is the only one we absolutely know for a fact that we're getting. And I believe the Better Roads program, the Stream Bank one, that decision was due like in April, and they're still not decided, but it's supposed to be coming sometime in June, so we should know. And then on the other side, I just had some current research and grant opportunities that I've been following through with. We've been talking a lot about sidewalks, but then when I started to talk to Windham Regional about the sidewalks, they told me that they'd talked to Jeremy about large culvert replacement, so I scheduled a meeting with them for this Thursday. Anyone can come. It's gonna be here at Town Hall at, I believe at 11 on Thursday. I think it's really, he's gonna walk us through, because the deadlines are in June.
Who is he?
Call
Colin
Brad.
from Windham Regional. And what the VLCT had told me when I spoke to them about some of our grant opportunities was to really try to lean on Windham Regional when applicable, because we do pay for them and they are able to help us with these. Jeff Nugent from Windham Regional was actually working on Windham County sidewalk inventory and moved us up the list so that we know what we have and what could be coming up and what could be fundable. And he said, I'll move you up the list if you want. And I said, sure. So we should have that report from them sooner than later, and probably ahead of the deadline if we did want to apply for the grant. The grant would mostly be an engineering study. So they would tell us what we have, what we need, and then we could possibly decide that we wanted to move forward on an engineering study that we would have to pay a match for, but would be mostly funded by the grant if we were approved for it.
The study, but not the sidewalk.
To put a
work.
plan together, because these plans take a lot longer, like these TAP grants can take 3 to 5 years to go through.
Yeah.
If we pay for an engineering study, or get a grant for an engineering study, but really don't have a plan to execute the project, that engineering study is good for a number of years.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I mean, it is kind of the plan that you're putting together, and I think that's where Windham Regional comes in and they help you put together that plan if you choose for that to move forward. Although, once he had mentioned that he spoke to Jeremy about large culvert replacement, that felt very pressing to me. So I think that's just something that we'll discuss on Thursday and be able to talk about at the next meeting about
So
what's
Thursday at 11, you're putting it out to the select board, anybody who wants to attend, you need to just let me know so that I can warn it if more than Katie is going.
I can't do that.
Cannot.
Not so.
He did, most of the time frame that he had to schedule his meetings was before noon, so we went with it like that. So number 2 is the USDA solid waste grant program. I spoke to the USDA. I didn't have high hopes. I called them a while ago. They are getting a lot of cuts But they do have a grant or a very low interest municipal kind of loan program that they said that if we wanted to get a replacement for our compactor truck, it would fall under their guidelines. So I'm following the lead on that. He said that he doesn't know if it'll exist past fiscal year 26, so we would have to make those decisions sooner than later, but I think it's worth looking into on the off chance that we could get something like that. And then Vermont State Preservation, Historic Preservation, I don't know, I'm still trying to get a contractor for the upstairs windows, and there's nothing in their grant guidelines that say that you can't apply 2 years in a row. And since our building specs are all laid out really well and our application was really kind of excellent last year, I think that we might be able to just recycle a lot of those facts, put in some estimates for the windows and see if we get funded for that.
Yeah.
They're very interested in the building. That's why Preservation Trust has called us and why the state historic people have called us and wanted to work with us so much, because they haven't interacted with this building very much and it's very unique. So I think it's worth a shot to try again.
Mhm.
Last time they provided a suggested list of contractors for the roof. Do they have a list for the windows? Is it the same list?
I think it's the same list. I will ask again, just in case they've added anyone. And I've been calling local people and trying to I got a lead from some of the people at the Historical Society that I'm gonna follow up on that I think is interesting, and maybe it'll turn into somebody coming out and giving us some numbers to go on. And they were satisfied with us having done that kind of outreach. And we didn't have to show that we got free bids because we just didn't have free bids for the roof, but we did have a lot of contractor outreach. So I've just been recording all of that. And then the last one is MTAP. If they have more MTAP funding this year, I'd like to try to get some. It's for planning, and I don't know if they do, but they had it last year, so.
What is it? Drainage cellar?
Well, John Evans had raised that issue with the windows, the cellar windows, which actually Rick Batchkey had raised with me previously when I was doing the state preservation grant. And some of the MTAP funds, there's another one that is sort of affiliated with it, has to do with if you're having water, or if you need a study on how to do these, if you need a study ahead of doing these projects. So I'm just gonna look into that with them. Once we get all these documents into that point person, I'm gonna ask her more questions about different projects. So those are the things I've been working on.
Can we go back to the Windham Regional? Is that, the meeting Thursday, is that where we could talk about additional parking in town, or at least as a,
I think that is a time to ask those kind of questions.
like, how do we?
Because the bike or pedestrian program, and then there's another, on this one, the top is called Transportation Alternatives Program, and it's about expanding your transportation options, or your park and ride, or your parking, or pedestrian ways, crosswalks, sidewalks, all of that. So I think that would be the time to ask those questions.
Okay, thank you, Katie. It looks impressive.
Over $500,000 across highway and so that's awesome.
Okay, old business. Who would like to speak to the truck proposal?
Guess it would be me. So this is the same truck proposal that you looked at the May 13th select board meeting. There are two issues to be decided. One is for the select board to decide whether or not you're going to spend approximately $55,000 of the $75,000 that we currently have in fiscal year 25 for the replacement of the Freightliner body. And then the second question is whether or not the select board is going to direct the highway committee to put together a proposal on the purchase of a truck to replace the International. That proposal would be submitted by the end of this calendar year for us to decide whether or not we're taking it to the
By December, you
to
say?
the town meeting. Those are the two questions coming out of this proposal.
And are you looking for a comment or just an understanding of the proposal?
There'll be lots of discussion, but that's the two questions that
Okay.
were being presented at the last select board meeting that you all wanted some time to review and think about.
Are you doing discussion now? Is it members of the
Questions and
public or
discussion?
just select board?
No, you can go ahead, Laura.
So I'm still trying to figure out, I know that there was a $75,000 FEMA reimbursement that was supposed to come through. Did it come through?
It was not $75,000 FEMA reimbursement. There was lots of FEMA reimbursements. This is at town meeting that was.
Yeah.
There was a lot of FEMA reimbursement. It could have been, it was 80 plus 47
Yeah.
was still coming in. That was received, that was applied to the highway budget. There is $75,000 remaining of the $200,000 highway equipment allotment that was voted on at the 2024 town meeting. After we pay, after we after we did the leases, there was about $75,000 left. So the proposal is to use part of that $75,000 to replace the Freightliner body at around $55,000, and that gets our fleet, our vehicle fleet, to pretty high operationally for at least maybe 3 to 4 years.
So is the deficit going to be discussed at is that a different discussion later on during this meeting, or?
Be raising that.
Oh,
You
so,
can have comment on it, I mean, we won't
so
be able to say you're correct.
did you decide how to address that, or?
I'll speak. The $80,000 that we started fiscal year '25 with, we have been working really hard on the highway committee to come in on budget. So we don't know if that 80,000 is going to be addressed. We think we're in really good shape, and it may be, but we're not sure. We won't know that until the end of fiscal year '25. We brought in lots of money. We got hit with some really big expenses, but we brought in lots of money. So I'm not sure that the 80,000 is going to be covered, but we are really driving towards.
We're close.
Yeah.
So you won't know until July, whether it's going to.
We'll have more firm ideas as we get closer. I mean,
I do
something
have
could
that.
break tomorrow.
Yeah.
We don't know that.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
wondering.
And Laura, just so you know, that 75,000 that's in the equipment fund can't be spent other than purchasing.
Right.
It can't be the reduced deficit,
Right.
because it's a reserve fund.
Right. I have asked Elaine where we stand, and she's under the impression from Nemrick that the highway budget is actually in good shape, but I'm gonna try to get more information on that. But I do want to point out that this highway proposal does include deficit spending or borrowing in anticipation of taxes in order to cover the cost of buying out the backhoe lease and making our second lease payment on the grader. We will not have enough money for that in September. We will have enough money to cover that in November when our second tax installment comes. So it's either, deficit spending because the money's coming in November, or borrowing in anticipation of taxes because we know the money will be coming in November.
And it is imperative that we pay that, as it was voted at town meeting in September, because that's when our second payment is due. And, we wouldn't wanna be paying that and then paying again to pay the rest of it off. We need to pay that all at once in September.
So I don't know, that's not a decision that we're asking to be made tonight, but that is something that the select board needs to be aware of, which is that come September, we have 2 payments where we don't have enough to cover it in September, but we will have enough to cover it in November.
And realistically, this $50,000 to $55,000 for the body of the Freightliner, we have that money.
Correct.
And that was allocated or put in a fund, voted on at last town meeting, not this past town meeting, and that's part of the funds that we have left, and we'll still have a little bit left on top of it. And I think it makes a lot of sense for us to replace that body, make that truck last longer. And
I would just like to add something that was raised with me, which is why does the highway department need 5 trucks when it's a staff of 4? And maybe Jeremy can answer that, but my understanding is that if you have 4 crew members, you want 4 dump trucks, CDL trucks that you can work all winter long. And so the question, I guess, is the 1 ton, do you need a 1 ton?
We do for some of these little tiny roads that we still have. If we could give up, we need 1 ton to do the library because the big trucks don't fit back there. I mean, that's really it. I mean, there's a few little, like Hall Road and Schoolhouse. Fire hydrants, pull-offs,
So there is a need
intersections.
for a 5th smaller truck.
Not to mention, if anything breaks, you have to bring 1 truck, now you're gonna drive 2 big trucks to go get rid of 1 truck, or, you know.
Need some sort of smaller vehicle for these smaller stuff, whether it be a pickup or 1 ton. 1 ton would be preferred because it's a little heavier duty than a pickup, so.
Can I, and being part of that committee coming on, a lot of my thought was too, is knowing that the International's a 15, knowing international trucks at that age and that group of trucks in that year, that we may have another truck go down. And
Point in case, it's in the shop today. I brought it in this morning for a check.
that Freightliner has been some issues, but there's been a lot of work done to it. I feel that we would have 4 operational trucks to carry us through. The idea of purchasing a newer truck later on to meet the target of 2027, we need to be ordering it 2 years in advance now. That's how, I mean, look at our fire truck. We ordered that almost 2 years ago. 3 years ago, actually, I think it will be, and it won't be 4 years until we see it. So a lot of people need to understand that our purchasing has to align with that. And looking at trying to get, hey, we'll pray for that International to last. When we got a decent working Freightliner, we'll split the duties. You may not need to have all 4 trucks running it all the time, but then you're there when one breaks down. And that's a cheap fix to keep it going. In the sense of the cost of everything.
Not to mention, the 1 ton has been overused in the past several years. It's been
So it sounds like we need a motion to move on the body.
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion to, let's make sure I got the word right. To replace the body in the Freightliner for a cost not to exceed $55,000.
I wouldn't,
Not to exceed 60?
60?
Yeah.
We have an estimate for 50.
50.
Right, that's, yeah.
But that's just for the bar replacement. They may have to do some hydraulic lines and stuff like that while they're in there. Yeah, I don't know, it's hard to say. It's very, especially, you know, when they're tearing into an older machine, they could find some other issues there, but.
I make a motion to replace the body in the Freightliner for a cost not to exceed $65,000, paid out of the remaining $75,000 highway equipment allocation.
a second.
That's 14,000 more than what we've got going on here for the original bid of 50,963.
Yeah.
I bought several hundreds of feet of hydraulic hose, and that'll buy $14,000. We'll buy a lot of hydraulic hose and fittings. and other stuff. I mean, do you think we need to be at 65 or would it be better at 55?
It was point in case with the tires on the rubbish truck.
Right.
We set a limit on it and come to find out I had to do all 8 tires instead, so. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, Rob, but.
Well, that's, you're running, that's 30% higher than the original bid, but whatever.
So Fairfield, the only guys who got a quote from so far, or the only
They're the only ones that have a body available.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, we're limited on body shops because there's only 2. So Viking, there's no way I'd get the truck in there. They've already said that they have a body available and they can get us in. If I get approval tonight, I'll call and schedule it in for as soon as we can, so.
Do you want to amend the amount?
Subject to tariff? Oh, no, we didn't.
Because I mean, they're saying 145% tariff increases.
Where did it say?
I think if
Well,
we went
that's what I
to
heard.
58 or 60, I think we'd be okay.
So Ally brought up a little fine print at the bottom of the quote, subject to tariff at time of order. Have they spoken to you about that at all? Giving you like a heads up or what?
He just said that they have it in stock, so.
Well, that
it's not
was
terrible.
last time I talked to them, which was like a month ago.
So that would not apply then.
If they
Right.
haven't stopped.
But you haven't like heard anything specific from them on that, okay? We have nothing.
Is there a motion on the floor?
There's
And there's a second.
I don't know what the motion says.
The motion
not to exceed
is
65,000.
is to replace the body on the freight line not to exceed 65,000 and have it paid out of the highway equipment allocation.
And that's the total cost? Or-
Well, that's giving some buffer.
So that's the body only then, right?
Yeah, that's replacing the body.
Okay. Because when we say replace the freight line, it sounds like a
No,
whole
it's
truck.
replacing the body of the freight line.
Okay.
So being it that he has the body, in stock, it shouldn't take very long for the replacement job, right?
It's just a matter of scheduling it in.
Okay.
If he still has it.
If they have,
And your goal was,
should take about a month to do the install-ish.
yeah, and the goal was just to get this before
Winter.
winter, so.
I mean, if I call him tomorrow, he's gonna bring it over today, I'm bringing it over today,
Yeah,
so.
definitely. Okay.
When was the last time you spoke with them?
It's been a couple of weeks,
Okay.
so.
Just wondering, because it's full valid for 30 days, we just passed that, so.
Right.
But yeah.
Right.
Is the freight line worth anything?
We hope so, if
I
we
mean-
put 50,000 in there.
I mean, when we're replacing.
We're not replacing it, we're just replacing the body on it.
The body, the change system and the drive units
It's all-
and that whole body pan's gone.
It's all rotted.
Rotted.
Okay.
That's what happens with the salt.
Any other questions?
If I had, I'd be spitting them right out.
Yep.
So shall we call the question, the
No, we
motion?
should call the vote.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to utter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you got a new truck, Connie. You happy?
Not a new truck, it's just a body.
New body. Motion carries 4-0. Then there's one other question.
And how much that gonna cost us?
Right at the
The
end.
question?
Yeah,
They're free.
okay. What is the other question?
The other question is whether or not to direct this highway committee to put together a proposal by the end of December for the purchase of a truck to replace the International, to bring that proposal to the select board to decide whether or not to bring it to town meeting.
Do you need a motion for that? Or can you just
Direct
give
us.
us a proposal and we'll review it as a committee?
Well, that's spend any money, it's just a.
Well,
just
it's
making
a
a
lot of
proposal.
work, I
I
personally
mean,
don't
it's a lot,
wanna
it's
do the
gonna be a
work.
lot of work.
You wanna have the direction specifically.
Yeah,
It'd be nice to have the board's approval to go do it all, because it is a time consuming thing.
Make a motion to direct the highway committee to investigate and draft a proposal for the replacement of the international truck at the end of calendar year 2025.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Am I okay to vote on this even though I'm on the committee? Because I'm in favor of it. Okay.
Great. Okay.
And then when should we make the decision about borrowing in anticipation of taxes or not?
yeah,
Well,
that,
that, I think we
Just by
just talk
September.
about that if we decide to go further with what the committee's talked about, right?
well, no, this is
No.
for the, 2 lease payments and
Oh,
stuff.
Yeah.
So by
This is-
September, we need to make that decision.
Yeah, it's just a matter of how, because this is what was already approved by the voters at town meeting.
So I'll put it on every 2 weeks and we'll decide when we wanna actually make that decision.
I'm just looking at them. So the appointments now are our last item of old business. Connie, would you like to speak to this since you've been keeping this list for us?
I think there's only 2 things to mention, which is, at the last meeting, Rick Matchkey was nominated as the second Windham Regional Commissioner.
Right.
Alternate, he declined. Andrew Snelling, who is the Windham Regional appointee, said he didn't really feel a strong need to have
A second.
a second, but certainly if anybody wants to do it. So it's not as if there is an appointment that's vacant.
Yeah.
It's just the alternate. Then the second thing I would just add is that this list is pretty much the same list that you looked at on May 13th. My recommendation is to make the appointments, and then if there are appointments that you want to eliminate, you can eliminate them either later at tonight's meeting or at some other meeting. But I would not hold up all the appointments, the ones that are pretty standard every year.
There's just the one question on the back of whether or not we create the town website coordinator ahead of having a website or not.
I mean, I did not remove that from the list, but that was discussed. Nick raised that at the last meeting, which is all we're doing is appointing a committee to investigate.
That's what we discussed.
That position is not been created.
So this
It
is
is
just
highlighted.
crossed out.
Yeah, I think I just forgot to. Yeah, go ahead and cross that.
And I think in one of Cory's long-winded emails, he, said that he's not the coordinator. So he understands that. So how should we proceed with this board?
Make a motion to approve the remaining appointments for the following year.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Right.
Okay, so we have 3 and 1. And then I wanted to just mention that the energy coordinator is still blank, but I have been in contact with Paul Joris, and he is talking about it with his employer to see if it would be a conflict of interest. So, okay. Then we will move on to new business, which is trash collection bids.
Those are right there. Before you open the bids, I did want, to point out to the select board that I did include the current costs that we are adding for compost, for tipping fees, and for hauling fees. So that you have something to compare it to.
Well, we got 4 minutes. That's good. The first one is from Windham Solid Waste Management. Is this one only for compost, it looks like?
It may be.
Okay.
I thought it was gonna be cardboard, but.
It says that they're responding to the town's request for bids and pricing, providing pricing for collection and composting of food scraps and other compostable waste. The service will provide 4 64-gallon wheeled carts collected weekly. This service is $390 per month. Additional carts will be charged at $130 per month, I guess if you go over. Rate would increase annually during the 3-year contract, so it's a 3-year contract.
So it says it would increase annually during the 3-year contract.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So we could have raises.
And what was the additional?
130 per month
130?
for additional carts.
So anything over the 4 64-gallon wheeled carts would cost $130.
But they'll pick them up weekly.
$390 per month, and 4 64-gallon wheeled carts weekly.
What company was that?
Windham Solid Waste. 3-year contract with annual increases.
The next one is from Valley Recycling. Let's see, our bid for solid waste disposal only.
Solid waste.
Solid waste, this is Valley Recycling. From 7/1/25 to 6/30/26, it would be $101 per ton disposed. From 7/1/26 to 6/30/27, it would be $103 per ton disposed. And then 7/1/27 to 6/30/28, $105 per ton disposed.
And that's the tipping fee, I assume.
Yes.
So
Where
we
is it?
still drive it there in the compactor, that's.
What's the address on that?
East Hampton Road, Northampton, Mass.
And how does that compare to this one?
Our current tipping fees are 202, but is that for solid waste or is that?
No, that's for the zero sort.
Yeah.
I don't think the trash, the solid waste tipping fees are in that.
Yeah.
Well, we
I think it's somewhere around the same price.
We have one from Casella in here, so we can.
I thought the tipping fee for both was 202.
202 is the recycling,
Yeah.
and the trash itself is about half of what recycling costs. Last time I saw the invoice anyways.
So this one is MRR, and it's out of Enfield, Connecticut.
Do they know where Vermont is?
It's called Murphy Road Recycling. Okay, it says, I'm just looking, they have a lot of documents here. Okay. Murphy Road Recycling will accept single-stream recycling, mixed paper, and commingled containers delivered by the town to either the primary or the backup facility for $100 per ton charge.
Where's their facility?
They are
On Murphy Road.
located in, let's see, the primary facility is Hatfield, Mass. And the backup facility is Agawam, Mass.
And they don't pick up, they expect us to.
It says by the town, delivered by the
We don't
town.
have the ability to.
To, yeah.
We
truck
don't
that
have the
far.
ability, we don't have a
We
roll-off.
don't have a roll-off truck.
Right.
And even then, that's 2 hours away almost.
It's a long trip.
And for the compactor, that would be a one-way trip probably.
This is only for recycling, it's not for
That's
solid
like
waste.
one way on your own. The other way would be in the back of DJ's towing truck.
Yeah.
This last one's Casella.
There's just nobody going. Nobody left.
Okay. Solid waste disposal fee, delivered in town compactor truck, disposal fee of $162 per ton. 10-yard containers with lids for MSW trash container rental, $45 per month per container.
Those, we own those.
45.
No, and that's for solid waste.
That's Windham solid waste, and so it's recycling bins.
No, we
No.
No, we own the recycling bins?
we own 3 of them.
So that's for recycling.
Is that for trash or recycling?
This is still for trash.
Oh, that's if we don't.
Is it
have
$42
Used
for the compost?
I see what you're saying.
I think that our RFP asked for,
For two, either
for
tipping
the
fees.
cost of, with like two different
Two different
compactor fee and the
10-yard
roll-off
dumpsters.
system. So I
No,
think
the 10-yard dumpsters, front-loader dumpsters.
right, for solid waste. We asked for 2 quotes on that, so.
Okay.
All right, so this is still solid, can you read it again?
All right, solid waste disposal delivered in town compactor truck, disposal fee of $162 per ton. Then they have 10-yard containers with lids for MSW trash container rental, $45 per month per container. Then they have 10-yard containers with lids for MSW trash on-call service, $130.55 per container per service. Then they have recycling services, zero sort, town-owned 20 cubic yard containers, tip fee per ton, $198 per ton, adjusted from time to time to reflect market conditions. Hauling rate on call, $288 per haul, assumes container swap available.
That's the increase.
Food scraps, 6 Casella-owned 32-gallon carts for compost, rental no charge. Compost service, $35 per cart per service.
I think this is gonna take some
I
thought
was gonna say,
analysis.
I'm completely confused, like, we need to have a section that says trash, and then recycling, and then food scraps, and have it kind of weighed out, because I don't even know what I just listened to.
I can put together a spreadsheet, so they're not all bidding on the same system, only Casella basically is bidding on the whole system.
But what I don't understand, like, Windham Solid Waste, 4 cans at 304, what were they, 64 gallon cans or something that,
Yeah,
That's cheaper than
Well, what-
Casella currently.
yeah,
but it's fewer cans.
but it's just, that's just for the food scrap.
Yeah,
Right.
they're not bidding on the
But
So
we
did
can
we
do
didn't get
separately.
anything for a trash or recycling?
They don't do
Solid
that.
waste.
So it's only, we only got one full
Full
service bid, full bid.
Yeah,
Yep, so like Valley Recycling is just solid waste disposal. Casella is everything, Windham Solid is just compost,
And Murphy Road is just recycling.
and Murphy is just recycle, yeah. Which we have no way to do, because we can't drive our recycle.
Exactly.
I would think that it would make sense if we asked Connie to do a comparison worksheet so that we could address it.
Now, does Windham Solid Waste not want to give us a bid on the recycling and the?
They don't
They
do
don't
that
do it.
any longer.
They don't do it
They
anymore.
don't do it anymore.
And
The
they
only
don't
thing
do
they do now
solid
is
waste.
compost.
They were saying something that their compost is a new service to me. Yeah. So they were just trying to get in with something, it seems.
I remember them saying they had invested a whole bunch of money in this compost system.
We went down and
It's a
visited
great
it. It was a very, very well done, and, you know.
And
Well,
they have to
don't they sell
do
it?
cardboard if they.
Yeah, so they can make money off it, so.
Yeah, well, they can make money on both ends,
And
collecting
they
it
have talked
and
about,
giving it back
they
out.
were willing to do cardboard if we sorted.
That's working for.
That's if we could bring it ourselves.
Right, they don't come and get it, right? We would have to direct our contractor to deliver to their site, right?
Yeah, good luck with that.
That won't work.
Well, what do you folks think about Connie doing a,
I make a motion to table these bids until the next meeting when we have a little more information on it.
Second.
all right, any further discussion?
I was wondering if, I don't know if we would go back to the nice guy from Windham Solid Waste or call around to the other towns, but I know there was a lot of other towns putting it out to bid, and I wondered what other people got for offers and what they went for, and I wonder if anyone would share that information with us.
I think that's what Connie can include on her spreadsheet.
My understanding is that Halifax, which is only recyclable, no solid waste, no composting, is opening their bids tonight.
Okay.
And then the other two towns, which are not full service necessarily, I can't remember, but I think one just does recycling. They're not opening their bids till the beginning of June.
So before the next meeting, we should have some
So hopefully
information.
we'll have some.
We can call Bob, ask him.
I believe we are the only town that may have had the full service. I
Mhm.
can't remember.
So, okay, did we vote on that?
We did.
Okay,
We
so,
did not vote on it yet.
okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Uh,
Opposed? Okay, and then we have the health officer report.
That is Tom, that's been very good. Trying to get him to unmute. There you go.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, my report was I investigated a dog bite, talked to the person that owned the dog. They're on their way. They're going to be moving to Vernon. They said they're going to put the dog down. I explained to them the quarantine procedure that they must follow. Did not make contact with the victim yet. Went to voicemail, but we plan on talking with them. Also, it seems that they're having like a neighbor dispute, so it's kind of a hostile neighbor issue with the dog kind of being part of the party. So that's pretty much what I've got so far. Big thanks to Connie and to Alenka for getting me the information so I could make contact with these folks. So thank you.
You're welcome, Tom. And what date are you coming to town?
The plane leaves tomorrow. Yay.
So you'll stop into town hall and say hello.
Yep. What I want to do, whatever, is come into town, whatever, and set up a little spot for like a little office in there, whatever, for paperwork and stuff like that. Get some things done. So
Okay,
that's the plan. Cool.
all right.
Thank you.
And now we're on to the Windham County Humane Society contract.
Make a motion to sign the Windham County Humane Society contract.
Discussion? Move to a vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Shall we say to have me sign it? Or do we all sign it?
Or
Just you.
Ally
Okay.
Evans,
Okay.
half the board to sign.
Okay. And then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, and then we'll,
But, so I heard 3 votes. Were you abstaining, Rob?
I'm stating, yeah.
Okay.
and we're on to Grace Cottage Hospital USDA grant.
So if I can explain this to the best of my ability. So there was a impact survey form, if you all remember, that Grace Cottage asked the town to sign for their Act 250 permit. And they reached out, they spoke with Glenn to see if there would be any negative impacts. There wasn't. They reached out to Rescue Inc. to see if there was any negative impact. There wasn't. So the board felt comfortable signing the impact study or impact survey because there was no indication that there would be a negative impact. My understanding, and I asked her to write a little note that is in your packet, is that for the USDA grant, they want to know that the board is supporting the application. Not the project necessarily, but the application, which means in theory, we're supporting the project too. And that is what you're being asked to sign. So the documents include some of the old documents, but what you're being asked to sign.
So is it your understanding that this one said that it's not gonna have adverse impact on it, but this one is different because it's saying that we support it?
Support the application
So,
of the,
I'll make a motion to authorize Ally Evans on behalf of the board to sign the letter of support for Grace Cottage's application for the USDA Rural Development Grant.
second.
Okay, discussion?
I'm not really that interested. We've been asked before to write letters of acceptance, interest or whatever it is on our behalf. And my thing with that is that the hospital is their own entity. The town is their own entity, and we shouldn't be out sponsoring these types of things for other entities. The last one was with the Pinnacle Association. They wanted a letter of encouragement towards what they were doing. And it was like, well, it really doesn't have any body of work for the town of Townsend. I mean, that's a totally separate situation. Grace Cottage, my feeling is the same way, where they're their own entity and we shouldn't really be, it's not our spot to really be like, okay, because we're on behalf of the people in the town. So it's like us 5 are gonna speak for the 1,100 people that are here. And
I'm not an expert on grant writing. I do know the 2 times that I've been peripherally or involved in grant writing. One was the Stone Arch Bridge and seeing Katie do grants for the common. They often ask for letters of support, so that even though it is a particular entity that's going for the grant funds, the grantors want to see some support for the project, we'll call it. And so I do know that even though they are separate entities, the people that are giving out the money do want to show that there are some support. So we were asked to do that for the Stone Arch Bridge. We were asked to do that for the fountain rehab. So I do know that it's not unusual to ask for that.
Yeah.
And again, this is not, to my knowledge, it's not asking for support of the project, but it's asking that we support them applying for funds through the USDA.
So I'm not a grant writer. I'm not a grant writer here, but I have worked on the funding side, and like Connie said, it is just really typical to get these letters of support, and it is something that like a funder is looking at if they don't see the support from the local community, then that also kind of raises some red flags for whether or not they actually get those grant funds. Not to say that their funding would be contingent on whether or not we sign this, you know, it might not affect it, but it certainly would help their case to get these funds to complete this project that they're underway with, to have that show of town support. So for that reason, I'm in support of signing it.
This is a federal document, and this is a state document,
Yes.
is that correct?
That
This is the
municipal
order.
impact questionnaire is what we
Right.
signed for the Act 250
In December,
permits.
yeah.
Yeah, and that was specifically just for getting the process moving.
And we
for the
went
permits.
round and around with them many times about this, because we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just us saying, yeah, it's fine. We wanted the highway and rescue, et cetera, to sign off on it. I just don't understand the redundancy.
What I'm
I think it's
seeing,
two different entities.
Yeah, yeah, I think
This
Connie
was-
just included that as background to show
No,
what we
I'm-
have signed, but it has nothing to do with what the USDA letter of support is.
what I'm seeing in the letter of support is that we'd be signing off that the applicant / project will provide needed services to the community. I do agree with that. I know a lot of people that use their primary care over there, and probably a lot more that could use it, being, I'm a person that drives pretty far for things like that, so it is nice when people are able to access that in their direct community. And that it's not expected to have an adverse impact on other facilities providing similar services, which we already signed off on that on a separate paper. And for those reasons, I guess I would, not have any issue with signing it, because, it's not putting us on the hook financially, and it does provide a service to the community.
Dale, did you want to say something?
Well, that was the paragraph that I was gonna point out, that they need to have those letters. I've been involved in several of these. They need to make sure that this is their copy of saying that it's not gonna add an adverse impact. So it's basically, it's not necessarily a letter of support, it's just evidence that it isn't gonna impact. Their application is not gonna impact. They just need that third party.
And do you want to amend yours to have it, have Ally sign on behalf of the board?
I think it's,
Oh, you have that already in there? Okay.
Sure, we can do that, sorry, I was just thinking about this. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
alright,
Aye, opposed?
All right,
Okay. And is that the end of the meeting?
that's our last agenda
I
item.
vote
Yeah.
to adjourn it is.
Yeah, let's vote to adjourn at,
Who's making the motion?
So
Second.
7:34.
You have a vote?
28.
Call the vote.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4-0. I just don't want her.